Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. GMT, every day of the week, where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the wonderful internet. I'm your host, BJ. I'm joined by my legendary co-host, Legendary, and we cannot wait to get into everything that's been happening in the last 24 hours in the NFT market, as well as looking forward to some big mints going on today. But before we do that, just as a reminder, nothing that we do or say here is financial advice. This modern market is very, very risky. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, how are you doing this 16th of January, which is a Tuesday?
Which is a Tuesday, Jim. I'm doing quite well. I'm a bit on a mission today. I told you before the show. I am on the mission that I need to spend money in real life, and I need to stop struggling with doing that. I don't have any issue of spending money on JPEGs, doing a 5-figure purchase or whatsoever, but I do have an issue with spending a similar amount of money in real life. Like, going on holiday is one thing, going for a nice dinner is another thing. That's perfectly fine. But I realized it when, for New Year's Eve, my girlfriend and we went for a lovely dinner, and then we went to the casino. And I was like, I do like to gamble a bit, and I obviously gamble on those crypto gambling sites, and I don't have an issue with depositing like a couple $100, 0.2 ETH, whatever, and just gambling that, knowing that is a completely degenerate thing to do. But when I was at the casino, I was like, yeah, I'm going to deposit like maybe 200, 250 bucks and just have a bit of fun. And I'm like, yeah, 200 is a lot. Maybe let's do 50. And I mean, it was up and everything and cashed out, so that was perfectly fine. But I realized how tough it can be to spend money in real life, and how I still have such a different approach when I talk about my internet money and when I talk about like tangible euro. So I'm on a mission to change that today and just go for a degenerate gambling evening to teach myself to spend money in real life as well.
So what I would say to this is that you started with, I started like heavily empathizing with the general point which you're trying to make, which is internet money definitely feels different to real money for sure. And I think one of the reasons, well, we'll get into the reasons in a second, but I definitely have that similar thing. All I'm noticing though, as we talk about these things, and it's a bit of a theme since New Year, is that a lot of your stories start and end in the casino at the moment, Legendary.
Yeah,
Is there
starting in
any?
the casino, yeah, it sounds like I'm making up a story why I would want to go to the casino, but in reality, it is like the most stupid way to spend your money. And like, I kind of do want to get comfortable with not overthinking, like, oh, I went for dinner, how much was it? Like, just being able to spend it without thinking too much about it in a healthier way. I don't want to turn like into a monster that just keeps throwing money around, but I do want to have a bit more of a balanced approach to both the internet money and the real life money. So I think this is a bit where this is coming from, because even in the last bull market, where I bought I started like my watch collection, right? And even then, when I bought watches, which are luxury good, I was like, which one could go up in price? Which brands do we go for? Oh, Rolex is up quite a lot. That could correct. Maybe we should go for something else, etc., etc. So even in that kind of spending, which is a lot of money, I was like not thinking about, hey, I'm going to treat myself for having done amazing with a nice watch. I was like, how can I make this an investment as well? I see Bray in the YouTube comments would rather have a bag of ETH on my phone versus a stack of cash in my wallet. Funny side story on that. In principle, I agree, but I was talking to a friend of mine who has the same issue. He's on a mission on, FIRE, financial independency, retire early. He's been doing tremendously well with his ETF investing and saving. And he's like still so uncomfortable with spending more than 50 euro on anything. So what he started doing like half a year ago is to go to the ATM, cash out 2K and carry it around in his wallet all the time, just to get used to having 2K in your wallet in cash, so that it doesn't seem like such a stressful number, such a shockingly high amount. So because even if he loses the wallet, it's not going to break his neck. Of course, he would be pissed about losing 2K, but just getting more comfortable with having actual cash, real tangible money with you. And it took him quite a while to get used to it, but it was a helpful thing for him. End of my tangent.
I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. I mean, the grocery store thing, I think, is pretty jokes. 2K, I think, is on the high side, frankly. But I do agree with you in principle, which is the internet money. There's something about how we're willing to take risks with the internet money and do things with the internet money that we just wouldn't do. And I wonder whether Bray just had another comment on the YouTube comments as well, like kind of getting into a bit of a deeper thinking about it. I think this, though, with inflation, how expensive life is now, it's not such a terrible mindset to have, being more frugal and all. I wonder whether is that do you think what's happening? Like, we want to try to take more risks in like one domain of life, keep a small amount, like kind of like how I was explaining the other day, how I view pounds like gas fees. Like, look,
Yeah.
I don't want to wait. I don't want to like be doing big things with that. The big risks I take are going to be in crypto and NFTs and all that universe. Whereas the pounds that I take, that's just me to like, that those pounds are meant to last for longer because I'm just trying to extend my runway basically while I take all these other risks. Do you think there's any truth to that?
You can't pin a comment that says, maybe it's a smart thing to be more frugal by Bray, high inflation, and in the same sentence say pounds are like gas fees to you that you just spend and it's just the cost of living. No, but in principle, I very much agree with you. And I think the point where I'm really coming from is obviously you have massive time constraints. Like my days are so busy that I got to a point where I was ordering food in twice a day. And you order food, that's nice, but you don't know how healthy that shit is. You don't know how they do it. I wanted to take more time to cook. And I was like, what would really help me is a Thermomix, which is the German version of a KitchenAid, like helps you in the kitchen, speeds up stuff, etc. Where I know where I would, if I had that, I would cook more often because all the cutting and all the kind of shit is being handled for me. But that Thermomix thing is 1.3K. And I spent 3 months thinking whether I should buy that or not for like 0.4 ETH or 0.5 ETH, whatever that is. Again, and when I see Manta Network, I'm like, oh, cool, that's a new thing. Let's deposit 5 ETH into it. And in the end, I ended up buying it and I'm using it every day. Now I'm cooking 1 meal a day, which is super nice, which is good. Like just, being frugal is one thing, and that's super important. Very much agree with that. But like taking care of yourself and, not compromising on your health is also very important. I realized that I was, rather willing to order in instead of being like, hey, let's spend 1K, get the thing, knowing, because I know myself very well, right? But then, and I have it for more than a month and I'm cooking daily, which is amazing, that I would do that and not think about the 0.5 ETH that I'm spending on that thing.
Very, very fair. I take all of those points. I actually do really agree with the idea of saving time. Like when it comes to saving time, that's a big factor. Pidito in the comments said, for me, it's opportunity cost. Money spent can't
Exactly.
100x. However, it can if you're going to the casino, which is what I just replied. Jack, your hand is raised.
Sorry,
How did you want to
one
come in
more
on
thing
this?
before we go to Jack, because you said it right. To save money, to save time, spending money is fine, right? And that matches your analogy of gas fees because you spend more gas to save time and be faster with a transaction, and that goes for real life as well, right?
Look, this is a good metaphor. I'm happy to run with this metaphor. I think your native currency is gas, and I think looking at it like that um, makes you think twice about entering certain transactions as well, right? It's like, do I want to spend gas, or do I want to waste gas on this transaction that I'm going to do? Jack, your hand is raised. Welcome to the stage with us. How do you want to weigh in here?
Well, really easily, because I can do a double segue to the Blair token rise as well, which is I really struggle taking profits. Like if it's up, I feel like there's always much more room to run. If it's down, I'm like, I've got to we'll make this back. It'll happen again. There's no psychology I have that doesn't point to holding on to these assets. I am the perfect NFT exit liquidity, which you've spoken about before on the show. But I did actually dunk a bunch of my Blur tokens into a brand new home office, which included a standing desk, a treadmill for under the desk, like a walking treadmill, and a Herman Miller chair. But now all I do, because it's now 20% up on the Blur token today, and that is from where I sold, I just look at that whole thing and think, this is real nice, but I could have also got a monitor with that. I could have got a better standing desk. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'm a big advocate of never taking profits and just holding your bags to zero or to Valhalla.
Health is wealth, Jack, isn't it?
Health is wealth.
I don't
but
know.
there's
I've
a
been pretty
difference
healthy
between
in
a
my life and
basic.
pretty broke at the same time.
There's a difference between a basic Herman Miller chair and a more upscale version of it. If you had held onto those Blur tokens for a bit longer, Jack.
Exactly, legendary. And thank you so much for just doubling down on that. This is exactly what I need right now. More pain.
Okay, well, if it wasn't the case that our normal show is not financial advice, this is also not financial advice if it was not clear. Funky, your hand is raised. Quick weigh in on this, and then let's get into the headlines and everything and all the price action.
I feel bad saying what I was going to say because Jack said he didn't need any more pain, but I only see pictures of him sitting in a coffee shop. So I don't know about this standing desk or any of this stuff.
That is very true. It's like, yeah, I'll believe this desk when I see it, Jack. And it's especially the what's it called? The treadmill that you've got going on underneath it.
Should I take a photo now? It's got the whole office set up. I'll take a photo and pin it.
If you're on it and walking on it, then yes, we want video, not.
Oh no, I'm sat on the couch downstairs.
Well, there you go. We want live footage of it in action, basically. Right, let's get into it. Nothing that we have said about treadmills, casinos, or anything today has been financial advice, just in case. But let's get into it. Interesting day coming up. Interesting day that's just gone past in the market. As always, the information I'm about to give to you comes from the snapshot, which is pinned up top. If you do find that it brings you some value today, please do give it a like. So let's get into it, starting with the price action. We've got Bitcoin up 1% at 43k, ETH up 1% at 2.5k, Solana up a few percent at $98, Ape at 1.4, NFT volume on ETH at 13.9, Solana at 5.1, Bitcoin at 13.2. Interesting to see ETH just like get back to the top there. There were a number of days where Solana was like right up against it or above it. Bitcoin also going crazy for a bit. Seems to have rebalanced just a touch. Getting into the headlines, number one, CryptoUndeads hyped mint is later today as whitelist spots sell for 18 Solana. Number two, Pudgy Penguins surge past 14 ETH after a huge sweep. Cyrus reported that the longtime Penguin holder has swept 26 Penguins in the last hour. This was a few hours ago for 349 ETH, that's $900,000, and pushed the floor from 12 to 14 ETH by themselves. 0 buys on leverage, and he hasn't sold a Penguin in 7 months. So that like additional detail I think is very important. Going to discuss that a little bit later today. And finally, Manta becomes first ZKL2 to be listed on Binance. We've been speaking about that as a potential airdrop opportunity. Looks like it should be quite good. Getting into the floor prices, we've got CryptoPunks at 58.5, Bored Apes at 25.1, bouncing up 3%, Mutants at 4.4, DGods at 3.1, Captains at 4.5, Azuki's up a few percent at 6.8, Penguins up almost 20% above 14, Moonbirds at 1.1, and Noun's winning bid was at 9.6 ETH. A couple of top sales, a Pudgy Penguin Ice selling for 49.9 ETH, that's $125,000, and Orkan, the artist, sold at the beginning and end for 10.1 ETH, that's $26,000. Like to see some fine art doing well too. Legendary, that is the price action. Those are the headlines. Any numbers that catch your attention first?
I really feel terrible for Jack because the chart that I have open is Blur, and Blur is up to 70 cents, 18% on the day. I'm really sorry, Jack. And we've also seen Machi on the one hand posting that he is selling all of his apes and that he is rotating all of his ape into the ape token into Blur. So there is a bit of buy pressure going on in Blur, which is quite interesting to see as we are still a bit away from the blast unlock and other news and announcements to happen for Blur.
That is interesting. Why don't we touch on Blur then for a second? I don't know if you want to change the headline while I kind of frame up a question here, Legendary. Blur's been a bit volatile. Remember when we first when the new paradigm was announced, where Blast, their L2 was announced, the token basically pumped for a bit. It went up to about 60 or so. Then it kind of settled down, started decreasing again. What do you think is the reason for this Blur resurgence? Because I think it could be a few things, but what are you thinking?
Very good, very, very good question. I'm checking if I missed any news by Pac-Man, but I do think that Blast is still a bit away, but I do think that the interest in Blur is still there, and there's still people trying to get exposure before we will see more news happening around Blast. I still think that when people see it as a proxy instead of buying NFTs, maybe the Pudgy run, etc., could also be helpful to it. Although there's no news that I've missed by Pac-Man. Although the argument could also be made for other tokens like Flooring Protocol or whatever else, that they could be used as a proxy for the general state of the market. But I do think that Blur is definitely the more popular choice.
Do you know what I think it is? I don't know about this. Like, I think we're just thinking about this in real time. I think it's something to do. I don't know how perfectly this stuff translates because we don't know a lot of the details about Blast. We also don't know. Remember how there was one of this elements of the rewards called like redacted. It's like, oh, you'll get redacted. I don't know if that was meant to mean the Blast token or something else. When they announced Blast and how you had to lock up your Blur and how you had to lock up ETH in Blast. But I think it's something to do with the fact that a lot of the ETH beta plays have run. So Arbitrum, Optimism, all of those L2s have gone up very, very significantly in the last month or so. And Blast is obviously going to be an ETH L2. So I think that potential valuation should probably be increasing in line with all of those other L2s.
So do you think that the Manta news to some extent is also pushing Blur? Now that we see the Manta TVL super high, we see Manta price predictions, we see the Binance listing announcement, we see already the Manta token trading, I think around $2.3 in the perp market, with many people expecting it to be around $3 to $4. Do you think that this price action could, exactly as you said, make people think about what's the next Manta, because Blast is still out there, still there with Billy in TVL, and cause that effect on the Blur price?
I haven't thought about it too deeply. This is my instinctive thought as you're saying it. I don't think that would cause like a specifically huge run up necessarily, because I think there's enough other comparisons out there for Blast. Like, I know Manta and Blast are like doing a very similar thing most immediately, but I think there's enough other L2s to get like reasonable comparisons for Blast. So yes, I think it's like part of the current narrative. Maybe they can kind of heat up together to some extent, but I think more that there's all of these other ETH beta plays have run. Blast is also ETH beta in that respect, and I think Blur is maybe starting to be seen a little bit adjacent to that. It's like, look, you've got a L2 connected to you. That's why you're going to move. If all the other ones are going to move, then you're going to move too. Interestingly as well, though, one of the things I was thinking, which is separate to the ETH beta aspect, is this idea that Tensor is going to come out with a token pretty soon too. And I just wonder how those two things interplay. So like, if that is a really hyped token, which I think that it is, and some of the initial valuations and calculations have been pretty significant for what people are expecting there, then maybe that pulls Blur up along again in some type of competition with Tensor, because it's unlikely that Tensor could be like higher than Blur, for example. I don't think it would be just for, although Tensor's doing an amazing job, it's got great product, and I think it's actually got certain products that are not actually possible on Blur. Like the market making, I don't think you can do on Blur, whereas that's a really cool feature on Tensor.
Yeah.
So yes, I think they will be very valuable. They've obviously had a lot of volume go through it, a lot of significant collections on there, like Mad Lads and Tensorians doing a lot of volume, Claynosaurs, etc. But I don't think they're at the stage where they don't have the numerousness of quality NFTs as ETH does, and therefore Blur will always have more volume in that respect, I think, which means that whatever Tensor comes out as, Blur's going to have to be higher. So those are my two strands of thinking. We'd love to hear what you think, Legendary, and then we'd love to go to Funky as well, who's got his hands raised.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially if you see how often Tensor gets called the Blur of Solana, despite Tensor and Blur approaching royalties in a completely different way. Because I mentioned Machi before, I did a bit of research on his Blur and Ape holdings, and just to have the numbers on that, because he did buy another 76K of Blur tokens as of like 10 hours ago, and he started buying Blur in November as of last year, has bought a total of 12 million Blur tokens so far. Average price a bit more than 50 cents, so spent 6 mil on his Blur tokens. Also has had 6 million Ape at an average price of 1.5 Ape that he bought from Binance and Dexys, so spent 9 milli on Ape, and he sold 6.5. He sold all of his Ape plus the staking rewards for profit. Sold it for 10.4 mil. Still holding 250k Ape, but has really been moving all of his Ape stake. All of his Ape stake, has sold almost all of his Ape stake and has moved a significant portion of that into Blur, and is continuing to doing so. So he's definitely also having an impact on the price, given the amount of millions of dollars he's spending on Blur.
Interesting. And I guess that causes a double effect. It's not just him moving into it. There'll be people who just either follow him in or front run him in. Exactly. So I guess that creates a double price effect. One final point before we go to Funky is there's definitely some whale games going on at the moment that everyone else is just not participating in, and it's definitely moving markets. Like when CBB, I don't know the full account, CBO or CBA, or I don't know. When the huge lender and airdrop farmer on Blur decided last week to pull all the liquidity, just decided one day to pull all liquidity, basically caused absolute carnage in the Bored Ape and particularly the Mutant Ape loan market, where all of these loans, there were no willing lenders to step in, created complete carnage. Every single loan was refinanced. Well, not all of them. I think a lot that was part of the Mutant Ape dip, but it caused complete carnage. A lot of loans got refinanced significantly higher. And so it shows that there's just a few big players who can really, really influence the market with the decisions that they take. And so that's something to be very, very conscious of, especially on Blur. So when that token goes up, it was really good that you brought that stuff up, Legendary, because I would not be surprised if it's not a couple of people making a few moves determining the future of that, because that's literally the whole collections are getting affected by certain people pulling their liquidity from the loan market, for example. So that literally played out last week. So that was really, really important to bring up. Legendary, quick reflection on that, or do we want to go straight to Funky?
Let's go straight to Funky.
Funky, welcome, my man. What are your thoughts?
I think you guys just did an excellent analysis. The one thing I was going to add, just as a quick aside for the Manta price speculation, for those who are not aware, Manta Pacific, the L2 that's running on Celestia, is the same team that built Manta, which I think they're calling Atlantic, on Polkadot. Oh. And they did a public sale way back in the day. So it was interesting hearing the price. And to just give you some context, that public sale was 36 cents per token at a $500 million FDV. And then, of course, there was the crowd loaners, too, who loaned their DOT to secure the parachain slot on Polkadot. So all of this, I think, is happening at the same time. So I'm curious to just see where the price goes, because I know a lot of my friends, for instance, who are in the public sale just plan to insta-dump. So, and if it is in that $3 to $4 range, that's a 10x. I got to imagine most people, especially at the beginning of what very well may be the bull coming, want to just get some extra capital to reposition into other projects and so on and so forth. So just wanted to at least give that little contextual reference.
Yeah, let's maybe take a second and get a bit more of the token, since we already talking about it, a bit more of the token info out on Manta. Max supply 1 billion tokens. The initial circulating supply will be 251 mil, so that's 25.1%. The Binance listing is to happen on January the 18th, so in 2 days from now. And the current price, as I said, on BitMEX is trading at 2.3 US dollars. If you look at FTV, 500 mil FTV, as I said, would put it at $2. Obviously, $1 billion FTV would put it at 4. If it reaches Optimism or Arbitrum at 3 bill FTV, the token price would be at $12.
Very interesting. Very good to have those details out there. Funky, quick question. We spoke about the importance of understanding unlocks, and you mentioned how some of the people who bought in pre-sale, rightly so, just like, well, we've waited a long time. We want to sell this thing straight away, get access to our liquidity. Are you familiar? Do you think that website that you shared the other day with us will cover all of the unlocks? Are you familiar with the unlocks? What's your sense of the sell pressure as we come out of the gate?
I believe that it will have that information on there, and if not, I can see if I can dig that up just in some of my circles, deep down in their Polkadot rabbit hole, because I'm sure that they have it. I don't know. It's hard to tell because I think there's such a pent up frustration with that team in particular, because whereas the others that had crowd loaned their DOT received their tokens, there was a TGE within a few months of the chain launching. Here we are 2 years later, they still have not produced a token. So this is why I think a lot of people, especially in my circles, were sort of suspect when they saw the Manta launch this new Pacific L2. It's like, wait a minute, you guys haven't even released the token for a chain that you created 2 years ago. And now you're trying to raise hype and more funds and everything else. So I stayed out of the Manta thing for a while. And it was actually you guys that really kind of was like, oh gosh, I better ape in here. And so, thank you for your influence. But, and then I got my wife doing it. She's really, we spent a lot of the winter break. She's still a teacher and she's gotten super into crypto and airdrop farming. She's like juggling like 10 wallets. She's like, how do you keep up with all this stuff? I said, welcome to my world. But she was doing the Manta Pacific and everything else. And so, I'll definitely circle back to you guys on this because I don't want to spend too much time on it. But I don't know. I think the sell pressure is going to be an initial. There's probably going to be people who want to exit, but I think they have such a hot narrative right now because Celestia is so important.
Yeah.
I think people are just going to be focused on that and only think of Manta in relation to Celestia, not to Polkadot. And even Kenny Lee, who is a super smart guy, the founder, he's an MIT grad. He's a wicked nice guy. But I think that there's been a recognition that the market doesn't appreciate the tech stack that Polkadot has, and they're trying to just not mention that they had this original chain. So I don't know. It could be something that plays out differently than I imagine.
That's really, really interesting context. Thank you so much for that, Funky. That's the kind of stuff that you just don't know when you read the timeline, because guess what? The team are not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you that in a tweet 2 years later, to be really upfront with some of the difficult or challenging aspects of their history. Having said that, and I want to kind of move into the CryptoUndead stuff because there's a similarity I want to draw here. I'm going to make a final point on this, then we're going to move on to the CryptoUndeads. It reminds me a little bit, Funky, of when people get very upset about certain things in the past, and sometimes the past is in the past and it's just not got anything to do with where things are going to go, because there's a new hype train now. Like, if you hadn't told me that right now, it would not have been on my radar, and I would have just been looking at the facts as of, reading the facts as of 2 months, 3 months, or however long, probably only been like 30 days or something because time's going so fast. But I would only be going off that information, and everything that I've seen in the last 30 days, after a little bit of uncertainty because I wasn't familiar with the name, has been like fairly positive about this stuff. The TVL has obviously been growing very, very quickly as well. They've got a Binance listing, which I think is very significant. So yeah, it was just a point about sometimes sometimes the train moves where like I think we could be on a completely different train, but I completely appreciate why certain investors who are on the previous chain, like when it comes to that point where you got to change over, they're like, no, I'm not changing over. I don't care if your next train is the best train, the fastest train, the most up-to-date technology advanced train. Like I was so unhappy with my journey so far, I am out. And I think that happens a lot in investing where the earliest people who go through the hardships get shaken out because they're just sick with it. Maybe just at the point where people are about to turn things around and things are actually gonna improve. Legendary, want to come to you for just some reflections on that before we kind of shift this into the crypto undeads mint.
Yeah, very, very much agree with that. And I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, it is quite impressive to see that if you launched a product or tried to build a product where you really didn't have the product market fit back then, that you have spent years on building, that you're willing to kind of abandon all of your narrative and change it to something to fit the current meta. And I think that it's a very tough balance to strike between being like willing to be adaptable on the one hand, but also not chasing every hype and pivot every second week to just, try to catch the latest hype. And sometimes you need to do a 180 and sometimes you don't. And figuring out when you have to make what decision is one of the toughest things you have to face as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. I think that is the case. Funky, I see your hand raised. Come to you with a quick one. Shripto, I can see you reacting as well. Would love to bring you in on this as an investor as well, if you'd like. Funky first.
Just in all fairness to the Manta team, I mean, they've been trying to produce ZK tech for a long time, and they were probably just too early, right? I mean, they chose the Polkadot tech stack because for a lot of different reasons I won't get into. But I mean, I think when you're doing this in 2021, we're only starting to see ZK rollups and other things that have those ZK snarks now coming to fruition here in 2024. So, I mean, I think it was just one of those things that was too early. And it's the same thing for Polkadot in general, whether it's parallelization, data availability, it does all those things. And it's been doing them for years, but it's just because there's no marketing and no one knows any of this stuff. So it's just, terrible timing, but I think it's just people being, to your point, impatient with the wait, which feels like an eternity in crypto, right? 2 years is like, it may as well be 200 years.
Exactly. Shripto, would love to hear your thoughts on this. See you reacting quite often. What are your thoughts, my friend?
Oh, I don't know if I have anything too substantive to add to this, but I have been kind of surprised to see how much more eager people have been with adoption of efficient L1s than L2s. And I don't know what it is. I think personally, class of 21, whatever you want to call it, a lot of us were initially familiarized with L2s as like spam. It was such a cheap way to just blast people's wallets with crap that most people's initial experience with L2 from that time was spam and exclusively spam. And maybe it's just hard to get away from that too. I don't know. But there's also, there's such inertia to like not want to have to learn a new architecture and new language and set up a new wallet. And so, it's been interesting seeing how much more willingness there seems to be for that now than there was a year or two ago, or even 6 months ago, really.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that's clearly become one of the emerging narratives is this modular system that's kind of in the Cosmos ecosystem / with compatibility with ETH in certain capacity. Like, I think that's one of the things that people seem to be very, very intent on exploring. So definitely big appetite there, I think, from the market and from people in general for that to start moving. Legendary, final reflection on that, and then let's get into crypto undeads.
Nothing to add to that. Let's straight move into the title of the show.
Let's do it. Do you want to set it up? Do you want to explain what's been going on, some of the FUD, some of the price action, like what's going on with this collection?
Yeah, absolutely. CryptoUndeads mint is the flavor of the day. It's been trending all over the timeline for the last 1 to 2 weeks. Interestingly enough, they collaborated with both DAOs and collections on ETH and Solana to kind of try to attract people from both communities for the mint on Solana. Pre-sale was going on at 2.5 Sol. The actual mint is going to be at 3 Sol, and As you perfectly said, whitelist spots are trading at 18 Sol OTC, where you can just go to those discords where you have a middleman and get those purchases going. And I think that Whale, who is with us in the audience today, had a beautiful thread on that, summarizing the FUD and the FOMO on that, and essentially making the point, just because so many communities collaborated, or CryptoUndeads collaborated with so many communities, you have many people who have whitelist from prominent and vocal communities who kind of want to defend their bags. They obviously say this is not a rug, this is going to be good, right? They have the interest of hyping up the project. On the other hand, you have the people who don't have a whitelist, or who want the engagement, who want to virtue signal, whatever it is, and they're like, yeah, but they don't have a product, it's just a website, it is just a hype, yada yada yada. And I think Whale also summed it up perfectly by saying, look, is it going to be the next Bored Ape? Most likely it's not going to be. But at the end of the day, we have to wait for the mint. We have to wait for what is to come after the mint. They certainly did an amazing job, Dollar and the team, at hyping the project, getting all those collabs going. And, that narrative of turning a 2.5 Sol pre-sale allocation into something you can flip at a 7x on the secondary market in OTC trading before the mint is definitely successful. But we just have to wait and see what happens after the mint, and to see if that initial hype was substantiated and will have any legs to run.
Okay, I've got a big point to make. Thank you for that summary. I think it's really, really good. Summarize a lot of some of the things that I think. One quick question to you first before I go off on this one, and need some help from the people in the audience. Tattoos, bullish or bearish for an NFT project when you start to see this type of thing? For the people listening in, there seems to be someone who has got a bunch of them tattooed on his back right shoulder.
Okay, so generally, two answers to that. Generally bearish, but because I have participated in the pre-sale, I think this is the most bullish tattoo I've ever seen.
I thought you were going to say you've participated in tattoos before.
Yeah, but no, I didn't participate in tattoos before, but I just participated in the pre-sale. So this is a bottom signal, if anything. No, I wouldn't get a tattoo of an NFT at all, to be honest. So I think, yeah, it's a bit over the top.
Okay, so that is inconclusive. I'm not taking that as a no. But this is what I want to say, and I need some help from the audience. Jack, I see you with the hand raised. I want to bring you in on this in a second. Someone tell me what the issue with this project is at the moment. Like, I see all the criticism, I see all the animosity, not animosity, I see the unhappiness with the project on the timeline. Someone in the comments to this space, tell me what is the issue with it. Because I'm always of the opinion, I'm very pro responsibility. I'm pro like you making your own decisions. The thing that I'm confused about is, like, if you don't like it, don't buy it. My take yesterday when we were talking about this on the spaces with Thread Guy was like, well, they've done a fantastic job in terms of marketing. Attention in this market is key. Attention is the key currency, the key commodity, both in crypto, for crypto tokens, as well as for NFTs. And so they've got that attention. They've earned that currency through whatever kind of tactics they've done. Now, I want to put a caveat around this. Some people were suggesting that some of the engagement was fake or botted. So if that is the case, then I would kind of flip and be like, well, that's complete nonsense then, because I don't agree with that. But I also think that in the end, any individual can look at something like this and point out the criticisms, which my understanding is, okay, they haven't been transparent. There's been no preview of the art. There's been, like, I don't know, maybe some fake engagement, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, if you as an individual can list 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things on a list of things which make you skeptical, then there's no reason for you to buy that project. So as far as I can tell, Srini in the comments told me the real answer to the question. People are salty missing out are the ones who are fudding. I think that might ultimately be the case. But Legendary, any thoughts on my position there? Jack, want to come to you. Kusho, you got your hand raised as well. We'll get to you as well.
Yeah, as you said, attention is the scarcest currency in our space, and if you manage to get that, and manage to do that in in a ethically responsible way that's not botted, not cheating, whatever, then that alone is a massive success. But again, even that doesn't say anything about the long-term success of a project or of the execution on that. One thing is to be able to be a good marketer and be able to garner the attention of the timeline, and the other thing is to be able to actually run a company. So it's difficult to make any kind of judgment of what the project will look like in a couple of months. And as you said, nobody is forced to buy it, but getting to that level of hype was impressive considering how fast it went. It's also interesting that it's more of a general reflection that we're in a state of the market where we can have multiple hype narratives at the same time, because the space seemingly is big enough for that again. We have the Manta pump, which was also part of our headlines today, right? That went from 30 million, 50 million, whatever TVL it was, to where is it now? 500, 600 mil, something like that. In over the course of a month, we have the price action in Blur. We have Pudgies being up 30% over the last 7 days. We have those whitelist secondary markets for the undeads going all at the same time, which generally is a very good sentiment for the market, in my opinion.
Indeed. So like a lot of positive things enabling, a lot of like positive market things going on, which is enabling this kind of froth and enabling a positive mint day for this mint. Want to throw to Jack now. Jack, what are your thoughts on this new mint?
I think they understand the market. I think that is one thing, and you can't really be bearish on that side of the sentiment. I think the idea of bringing other communities in from different chains is, I expect to see that going forward. I think most of the people on BTC, on Sol now have been in ETH, and there's just far fewer maxis around. They did also do a collab with BTCD gods as well, so they are across all three chains. That's very interesting. Bearish take on this is that they've been very, very vague with what the future holds. I've heard people say they've talked about themselves as if they're going to be the new crypto punks on this chain, which is just big red flag whenever you hear that. But this is, second hand. I think you've got to take all of this sentiment with a pinch of salt, because as you've said, it is going to be a lot of people who didn't get whitelist, who have not lost out. I did not get whitelist, so take my comments with a pinch of salt. Even though it was very easy to, because I was in like 15 communities that were like, anyone need whitelist for this? And it was one of those where I didn't have the right like connection. So when I tried to connect my wallet, it was like, oh, you're not part of this thing. I'm like, oh, fuck this. I can't be bothered. So I need to definitely get on that now we're hitting back to a bull. I just think generally though, this idea that, they don't really know what's going forward. I think the more positive take on why people are bearish on this, if it isn't that they haven't got whitelist, is because they're expecting market maturity, and this feels very much like a playbook that people should be wise to at this point. And I think it's like Arc Gobblers is the perfect example of like a traditional like pump in terms of marketing. Those things ran to tens of ETH, which is fine, but then they dumped so hard on people who got excited. You had KOLs or influencers, whatever you want to call them, who made massive profits during that time, but you also get people who are hurt on the other side of it. And at the end of the day, it is like an anti-liquid event. Like, yes, people make liquid on the run up, but also people get really hurt by these things. And for me, I'm much more a big fan of like longer term, longer standing projects at this point. Hence, when I look at projects at this point, it's older projects.
Yeah, look, I take some of those points, but I'm also unsure that I'm sure that there's certain times where you do reveal a lot to people and they like it. There's certain times when you reveal a lot to people and the market doesn't like it. Conversely, there's times when you reveal not a lot to people and people enjoy the mystery and they don't know what's coming, and then people figure it out after, and sometimes that goes terribly. Conversely, sometimes it goes quite well. when people don't know who the real founder is and they don't know certain details, and there's like a later reveal. And I think I'm not sure about this one. I feel like I agree with you that there's a certain playbook to this. There's a certain playbook to this where it's like generate a lot of attention, which I think any NFT project would actually be envious of, how well that they've managed to do that. And then in the end, I don't see it that different to other projects in the sense that, well, now it's about execution. Now it's about execution and trying to figure out how you, like, what direction you take this in. Now that you've got the attention, because that's like step 1 to 5 almost for some people. We said we're going to go to Kusho next. Raheem's also raised his hand. Just know, Kusho, if you were going to FUD, I believe we have Dollar, who's the founder of the project, in the audience. We'd love to have Dollar come up as well and maybe hear from him. Kusho, welcome to the stage, my friend. What are your thoughts?
GM, I would like to report from the field. I'm the referee for today. Play ball, fair ball. This is the game. Everybody knows the game. This is the game that we're here to play. This is the game we know and love. No complaints, no bitching, no whining. You didn't get whitelist. Don't be salty. Sit down on the sidelines and wait for your turn. We're going to have substitutes. Just be careful because substitutes spike the exit liquidity. So it's going to be fine. I feel like in every case, there's 5, 6 reasons why you shouldn't even be in this market. There's 5, 6 reasons why you shouldn't buy BTC. There's 5, 6 reasons why you shouldn't buy ETH. There's a ton of reasons why you shouldn't do a ton of things, right? So if you're thinking of a couple of reasons why you shouldn't get into this, I think you would just be best suited not to be a crypto markets participant in general. Because it's one of these things. It's time and season, basically, right? In a bull market, this is something where people would go for it. Obviously, people will gobble it up. In a bear market, we'll be like, fuck you. We want to know all the details about the project before we buy it. This is fine. I mean, this is natural. But are you expecting people to get much smarter? And I mean, no, obviously. We're all here. It means we're all retards, basically. So, yeah, this is basically the game. Play ball, rapid calls, play on. Who is this guy? This guy's awesome.
Look,
great.
That is the official judgment from the referee.
The official modern market referee, Kusho. Absolute legend.
Absolutely love those takes. So many takes in there that I think make sense. And harking back to that initial point, if you want to play the game, play the game. If you don't know the game, get out the game. Something like that, Kusha. I think you said it better. Raheem, we're going to go to you first. Eddie, I see you with your hand raised as well. I want to come to you straight after. Raheem first.
Hey guys, good to be here. I want to just bring this up last night when I was on the TG spaces with you, B-Check, but I believe I was towards the end of the space, so couldn't join it. There were 2 points made by a gentleman, and I'll not name them, that made absolutely no particular sense to me, and I was very passionately emotional about talking about it, but I wasn't just able to. This idea that someone was like, for a project to do whitelist across like 50 projects is like a bearish idea. I was like, I actually massively disagree with, especially with some of the projects that were being whitelisted. Let's take an example of like freaking like Alien Friends. Who is talking about Alien Friends? Who are these people in the Discord of Alien Friends? And you have to believe that if someone is even active in that Discord, has some sort of an emotional connection to that project, that community, whatever it is, and why wouldn't you want such kind of people in your project? So I was like, it was absolutely wild for me to hear someone go like, it's actually bearish, because I think the stipulation of people having been in the Discord for over a week was absolutely genius, especially for a lot of these projects that have been acting like stable coins. Like Chimpers is a very great example. The second bit the gentleman also mentioned, they were like, this idea of the project being like we're bridging ETH and SOL is like an overhyped narrative, and I think it's not true. And again, this is something I would go back and say that you got to check how much people have skin in the game from when people make these statements. Because if you were in any of these Discords that had these whitelists, and even if you go and search this, you will realize that a lot of people were like, oh, how do I even like create like a phantom wallet? So many people in the Chimpers Discord were asking, okay, like this is, how do I create a wallet? Is it can I do it on the phone and this and that. So I feel like a lot of people who are just going back to what everyone said are fighting, who have like no information and are looking at things from a very black and white perspective. What I think, whereas what CryptoUndeads have done with their marketing, with the attention economy, without over promising things, have actually done a fantastic job, regardless of how this goes in the future.
Yeah, I really like that take. I think in the end, as you say, the attention in this space is one of the hardest things to attain. And I think a lot of people might even be envious of being able to, for any project, who are able to accrue that much attention, particularly across chains. Like, it's hard enough to do that in one, but to be able to do that across a number, I think that's something that is quite significant. Want to go, Dollar? We've got you up here with us. We just said we're going to go to Eddie first, and then we've got
no. Just I'll make this quick, just so that you can go straight to Dollar, because I know that's what everyone wants to listen. Most people have no idea what the hell they want. It's bullshit takes left, right, and center. And honestly, dude, I don't know what people expect out of businesses. Yeah, 100% of them are going to succeed every single time. Like 100%, guys. Brilliant ideas. Anyway, just go straight to Dollar.
Thanks very much, Eddie. Dollar, welcome to the stage with us. I believe it's your first time with us. Welcome. First question, how are preparations going for the mint? Are you excited? How are things looking for you?
Yeah, thank you. And I should have said it is great, honestly, listening to the different opinions and perspectives. And quite frankly, everybody's entitled to it because everybody's had a different experience, right? So like, you've got people who just feel like they keep getting slammed and like, this is just another one of those. And, you know, there's others who have had a better run and they're like, you know what, I've kind of seen this play out the right way before. I think in terms of preparation, really good, not a lot of sleep. But, you know, I don't have heaps of time. I kind of wanted to quickly touch on some of the marketing points, and a couple of people made some great observations, and I really appreciated some of those takes. It's like, if we want to build a brand, like if a brand play is what we're trying to do here, it's really important that we garner a lot of attention in the beginning. And that probably sounds like, to some people, I don't know, like selfish or unnecessary, or we should prove ourselves, you know, before we deserve that attention. But like, in practice, that's like just not how this works. Like, you need to have enough attention that sort of catalyzes the ability for a brand to catapult to a certain level of relevance. You can even look at, you know, I know someone said it was like a bearish thing that we sort of aspired to have a status like Punks, but it's like, look, Punks weren't the first PFP, right? Punks had a group of really good holders that pushed the narrative super hard. A bunch of attention flooded onto them, and they sort of gained their stature in the space. And so I guess this is a long way of me saying that, like, objective number one is to have a brand that the whole space recognizes really quickly, so that everything we do from here has eyeballs, which is essentially critical for a brand project.
Dollar, I've been building out my NFT project in my community for the past 2 years, and no one cares. And now you show up on the block, and within 2 weeks, everyone cares about you, and it's going to give you guys millions of dollars. I'm mad. Like, I should be very upset.
Thanks for that feedback, Eddie. Dollar, in seriousness though, I think what you said just made some sense. In order to be established, goal number one has to be to get the attention. How do you feel about some of the criticism being leveled at the project? Where do you think that criticism is coming from? Do you understand it on any level?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's totally like fair criticism, because we have seen projects that kind of just take the approach of like, let's just share nothing because the art is genuinely terrible, and disappoint. Like, that's totally real. And unfortunately, there's a correlation between like the strategy that some of these people used and what I know works to garner attention. And like, that's kind of unfortunate, but like, I've tried to be as honest as possible about our approach. And I've put my name on it as somebody who's been in the space for like years now with a lot of great relationships. I was never someone who like hard shilled anything. Previously, like I have always been, you know, relatively careful. So the best I can do is keep promises to an absolute minimum, and, you know, get behind it completely, which I have and will continue to do. So totally understand the skepticism, and quite frankly, don't want to force anyone to do anything.
Sure.
But I also know exactly how this needs to play out.
That's awesome to hear. What do you think then? like maybe kind of putting a more positive frame on this, like what has been the secret sauce? Because I think even your detractors or people who might have some criticisms will at least, or should be at least, able to not acknowledge that you've done a great job with in the attention game. So like, what's been the secret sauce for you guys? Is that a little bit of a combination of what you've done with the brand, but also you as an individual, having been in this space for some time, kind of putting that reputation on the line? Tell us a little bit about the brand side and you as a person, because I personally don't know that much about you either. That'd be really interesting to hear.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think when we talk about the personal brand side of things, like I've never put my name on something like publicly and gone hard at it. I've always been pretty careful about doing that. And so when I reached out to a few really good friends of mine who are big collectors and said, hey, like I really believe in this, and here's how I think a PFP collection needs to play out in 2024. They were kind of like, just, yeah, like we kind of believe in you. We know that you don't push much, and I've never, tried to do something like this before. We'll give you sort of the benefit of the doubt. And as the kind of brand message and like some of these people have seen the art, by the way, like they've signed non-disclosure agreements and had access to some of this art. Like as things have come together, their level of conviction has sort of multiplied. And I think that's echoed throughout, crypto Twitter and everywhere else. So I think these early kind of seed relationships are important. The other thing is I spent a lot of time on the phone one-to-one with people who are big collectors, have a degree of influence. I know that people hate when it's talking about like influencers that are like dumping on retail or whatever. Like, but there is an important difference. So it's like getting on the phone with people, explain the message, and getting them to believe in that narrative. Because obviously this is an attention economy, and that's like totally present in my mind. So it's the relationships, it's doing the one-on-one networking. And then it's, kind of the playbook that people understand, which is like mystery is more exciting. And, it's kind of that meme of like, everything kind of looks better when there's more attention and when there's more value behind it. So it's like a collation of all of these things, understanding how the market psychology works and combining that with the relationships and sort of the one-to-one seeding of the concept.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Digging into that point about relationships, and I know people always have this visceral reaction to when they think there's some backdoor cabal or like a group of influencers who get the majority of stuff, and maybe find out things before other people. But I think when you've been around for a little bit longer, you understand that this is that there has to be some element of bringing some people into the fold. How do you think about like striking that balance between, revealing certain things to certain people, pulling in certain people on board, like early doors, versus, getting the broader public and retail along for the journey?
Yeah, okay, so that's a great question. Look, I have through this whole process prioritized fairness. And, we've had criticism of certain steps in the process, and like people are free to do that. We have taken every measure to keep this as fair as possible using the structures that exist, right? Like we have genuinely done our best. And people, think that we've handed out free mints or something to like win favor. We haven't done that in any with any influencing, like anything like that. And most of the allocations are like these people have fallen into a community allocation. So, we're not buying favor. We've just kind of had these people believe in this sort of brand message and idea and are genuinely excited about it. And so, I've got really big names, so I'm not going to mention it, but like they're reaching out to me asking for one allow list spot. Like, hey, I'm really excited about it. Can I just have one spot? And they're the people saying like, oh, I'll tweet about it and stuff. And we don't like force anybody into any deals like this. But what I'm trying to say is like, we don't want it to be these types of deals. And we want to do the whole process as fairly as possible. And I think people kind of recognize that overall, and that's sort of playing in our favor.
That's really, I think that's quite encouraging to hear. One of the other things I'm just thinking live, like as we're having this conversation, is that it's so much better when you're able to talk with the person and kind of articulate this stuff via voice. I think it definitely scales in a way that is not really possible when you're just, people are just looking at the timeline, just looking at comments, just looking at text. So I think it's really interesting to be able to have this.
It's the Australian accent that's selling you, isn't it? It's the Aussie accent.
Yeah, it's that old connection between the Australians and the British that's swaying me.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you something before, because I do have to run. Like we're it's all hands on deck right now, getting ready for mint. But I'll just kind of close it out with something important. I have like owned most PFPs on ETH. I've owned a lot of PFPs on Sol, and my whole thesis for this collection, which is obviously a PFP, is like my collective learning, if you want to call it that, of like looking at different founders and how they attack the process and how it went. And I've kind of taken a bunch of, those learnings and those observations and those conversations with founders, created my own thesis and said, let me do it this way. And I will never go out and make like massive promises, massive hype tweets, and I'll never talk about floor price. I'm never going to play it that way. I'm just going to let my thesis play out the way I think it should play out. And I have a high level of confidence that the market will be receptive to that. So I'm just kind of, going to be true to that approach. Fairness and, this type of thing will always be a part of our approach. But in terms of how this plays out, I'm just kind of sticking to my guns, because I feel like the idea I have and the brand narrative that I have in mind is really strong and has a great chance to, to do some big things this year.
One final question. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that context. One final question, if you are able to say so, because I know you've been fairly restricted in what you said about certain things. What, if anything, can people like concretely expect from CryptoUndeads?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. My team is already going to hate that I'm on this stage. I'm pretty sure I'm going to open the Discord chat and be told to get out of the space. I've rejected. I honestly haven't jumped on any, despite all the requests. Look, I'm not going to open that can of worms on this space. I will just reiterate that the focus is on brand. We're not going to build a game. We're not going to build a protocol. It is a brand play. That being said, it's not going to be as vanilla as what's been built for Punks. I mean, all they have is a collection marketplace and then a couple of partnerships. I'm going to try and merge let me be careful with my words here, the commercial strategy of Punks, but include some more degen mechanics throughout this that make it fun and will make it engaging for people who are a little bit more on the degen kind of fun side of things. So I'm not going to say more than that, because I don't want to make promises I can't meet, but I'm trying to accommodate the full market while maintaining a high sort of brand status, which is my overall goal.
Very, very interesting. That is very interesting, Dollar. I appreciate you jumping in with us. I know you've got to run, but that was very, very insightful. Very much appreciate your time, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the chatter and all the engagement on Twitter from everybody. It's really great to see. And thanks for having me on the space. I'll see you guys soon.
Take care. Good luck. Legendary, back to you for a moment. Little quick reflection on the previous conversation. I know, guys, we've run.
Also, none of us got whitelisted off that. That's
crazy. We can't ask the first time, Eddie. We can't ask the first time. Maybe next time. Legendary. We have run over time. We're going to just go for a couple more minutes. Quick reflection on this. If anyone's got a quick reflection, Eddie, Raheem, you had some comments. Jack, maybe we can get to those. Interesting conversation. That was the first time I'd ever spoken to Dollar. First time I'd learned about the project properly, other than what was existed on text. Legendary, any initial reactions?
Yeah, I mean, I love that Dollar joined us. Like, we didn't reach out to Dollar and request it. It just happened organically, which is always the most beautiful thing to see. I did like the conversation. I also like the part that I liked most about it on the first reflection is that no fluff approach of no building a protocol, not going into gaming, like stating at face value that the playbook is branding. It's okay to not share what they want to do in terms of that playbook, but not like teasing or hyping other trending topics that are not there. And I think this is a very like fair thing to do, because it seems like now every project tries to somehow get their feet into gaming, even if it's like a super small hyper casual, and I can't hear the word hyper casual anymore, hyper casual game. And I like that, the Dollar didn't went for, and we might do something in gaming and we might build our own layer 2 solution, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, fair enough. Some other comments in the on the Twitter account is after hearing Dollar speak more bullish than ever, a lot of things to do with the accent. Accent seems to be bullish.
Yeah, I
in
think that's
general.
because of Eddie. Eddie did frame the entire audience to
Yeah,
connect
you
Aussie
kind of
accents
pushed
and
them into
bullishness.
thinking
There
that.
is a very strong subset of the Aussie community. Like I've noticed it for the past 2-3 years. I'm not joking. It is a ridiculously powerful group. I've got a bunch of friends, Luke Jonesy. Some of you guys might know him. You know the Aussies, and they tend to be pretty cool dudes across the board. So
Pretty cool dudes equals bullish. That seems to be the
Yeah.
conclusion. Jack, your hand is raised. Put us with a final concluding point or any reflection from that interesting live conversation.
Yeah, that was pretty dope. I love that when we get like founders just randomly hopping on stage, especially on like today of all days. I'm really bullish. I think it clearly shows he understands the market. I think building brand, we literally talked about it yesterday. Like when you look at the top projects at the moment, it's IP and it isn't necessarily building a game that's going to take you 3 or 4 years. Like Pudgy's what they're doing with Instagram, Azuki, what they're doing with like trying to take on the anime market and their short form videos. Like these are the things that are capturing people's attention right now. And the one thing we do know about projects is it's digital collectibles. That seems to be the one thing we can agree on. Is in some respect they're Veblen goods. They go up when the price goes up. People want them more, not less. And also they become more attractive in terms of the IP generally as well. When more and more people notice them, understand them, that's when you get PFP changes. That's when you get flex ability. And I think that's really interesting to see how they do. The long term, I think you've set yourself a very high standard dollar with the idea that you're taking on punks. But I love to see it, love to hear that that's the ambition. And final point, really liked how you said, look, you've got a direction for this thing and you're pretty confident with that. I think we've seen too many early project founders, like they have a massive run up and then they start just conflate into what all the holders want to happen. They want a game, they want this. So the idea of someone with like a general direction, they already understand the space and they know what they're going to do with it for the foreseeable of 2024, that's super bullish as well. So all in all, changed my opinion a little bit, and can't wait to watch these guys and see what they do.
Yeah, it's funny what a little bit of like voice conversation is able to do, like when you just get to see behind the mask in some way.
Oh yeah,
you hear people properly, right? Really
definitely.
interesting.
And also got to shout out Alex's building as another Aussie who is just an absolute legend in the space, as Eddie was talking about Aussies.
Unendingly bullish on the Aussies. Eddie, give us a quick one. We want to close
yeah,
out.
I'll make it
soon.
fast. And just because I wanted to give an honest take, look, reality is like the vast majority of businesses and especially launches in this space fail.
Yes.
And like just to be honest, like I have plenty of doubts about every new launch, especially including CryptoUndeads. And but just to be real with you, like there is a baseline of success rate, right? And that success rate may be like 5%, let's say. I don't know what the exact number is, but for new businesses, let's just say 5%. And I think this one has a much higher chance of 5% of success. And I think like that's enough. It's probably not 30 or 40% chance of success, maybe like 20, right? It's like 10 to 20%. And I'd say that that's a pretty damn high chance, like a pretty damn high reality. And I'd be willing to bet on that. So like, that's it. That's as simple as that. And everyone likes to be like, oh, it's a success. Oh, it's a failure. Like, why not just a higher rate of chance? Why not a higher probability baseline? And that's enough for me. So good luck.
I like that a lot because thinking through things with a probabilistic mindset is clearly more like real life. Like things don't need to be so binary. And as you say, I think that's a nice sobering thought before we all got drunk on that wonderful Aussie accent. Yes, a lot of these things are not home runs, and sounds like they've got a strategy. Sounds like they've got a niche strategy, and he sounded pretty eloquent, to be honest. So good luck to them ultimately. My final reflection is that, gosh, it doesn't half make a difference when you get a chance to talk to someone and hear more properly rather than via an NFT Now article or via the timeline or via your favorite Spaces host who will read like your favorite threader's thread and like just speculate. because all of this endless speculation actually doesn't get closer to the heart of the issues, probably 7-8 times out of 10. So yeah, very interesting to hear from the founder themselves. Legendary, a final thought before we close out.
Very same reflection here. I went from like, nice, I'm gonna take a 2K profit in the afternoon to let's keep this and let's see what it does after hearing.
You have a whitelist.
Yeah, I told you I participated in the pre-sale. I mentioned it before.
Nice.
So it's interesting to see what like 5 minutes of talking to someone do, but it's also interesting how easy it is to be turned into FOMOing into something in this space, right? We're all degens at the end of the day.
Yeah, that is very, very interesting. But look, guys, I'm glad we managed to have that conversation. I thought it was really interesting, thoughtful, and I'm glad we managed to get that information to you on a pretty important day for Crypto Undeads. Wish them well, nevertheless. And just a reminder to all of you, we do this every single day, 7 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. GMT, every day of the week. We discuss all things to do with the NFT market. That is crypto, NFTs, and any other major economic macro things that are going on that affects this modern market. We hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to my co-host Legendary. Thank you to our speakers Raheem, Eddie, Shripto, Jack, Funky, and Kusho, the referee. Have a wonderful day. We will be back on Twitter and YouTube tomorrow at the exact same time. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.